Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the North East Non-League Show, episode 31, Hartlepool United Special, sponsored by Jade Bell, Herd Game 2, and Facebook sponsor DJ Private Hire. Joining us tonight, we have two Pools fans, Callum and Alex. Thank you very much, lads, for coming out tonight.
Pleasure.
So, and start with always, you always kind of get the love of where you obviously fell in love with Hartlepool United. Callum, with yourself, where did it all start for yourself?
So primarily when I was in school, my mates were Pools fans, and I ended up tagging along to the pre-season game against Sunderland a few years ago. We won 1-0. Steve Howard, of all players, to score the only goal. And it was a spiral from there. Got a season ticket for a couple of years, but then through work, I work Saturdays now. But bought as many games as I can and stuck with them ever since.
Yeah. And yourself, Alex?
A bit less glamorous than the heights of Sunderland friendly. But I had absolutely no interest in football till I was about 12, and Pools were on the telly randomly playing Bournemouth, and we won, I believe. Did we win or we drew? I think we won. I think we won 2-1 away at Bournemouth. Ep31 scored, and I just loved it, and I thought, oh, this is great. And I said to my dad, can I come with you? And the next game, we played Bristol Rovers at home. Again, won 2-1. Effie Williams was there. He was like my favourite player ever. The next game after that was a 0-0 draw in the horrendous rain against York City. But it was just one of those that it was like, you know what, this is my club, and I loved it. And, you know, 20 years later, I'm still following the club. Obviously, like Callum, I had a season ticket for years. I now don't, because I'm lucky enough to get into the games for free and walk around on the pitch, generally being a nuisance and getting in everybody's way and working for the club. But it's an absolute dream job, if I'm honest with you. And yeah, I love it.
No, brilliant, excellent. Starting off looking at last season, obviously relegation, but starting with yourself, Callum, obviously Hartley appointed June, 16 new players coming, like we just touched on there before we start the show. Fans hoping a new start, but then 4-0 loss straight away against Walsall. Questions asked of the loyalty of the signings, obviously, the signing in the 2 months, and he was sacked. As a fan, obviously, so early in the season, what was your thoughts going through your head?
I think there was a lot going on at that time. I know we sort of touched on it before the video started, is our pre-season with Hartley in Portugal and the distinct lack of players that we had, and then the players we brought in, most weren't up to the quality I think that we were expecting. And 1 or 2 probably pulled through towards the end of the season, but the majority of them weren't that good. And then obviously Hartley himself, you know, I wouldn't want to say the word try, but I think did it his best. And I think it came back to bite him starting at the start of the season, saying judges after 10 games, and what was he sacked after 9? So yeah, I think I said it all at that time, but yeah, there's a lot going on.
No, definitely. And like you say, next up, Alex, Keith Grell comes in. I know you do some great work for the club, which you've been chatting about as well. And you see Keith Grell comes in September, despite a few wins, again, a dozen losses, plays in and out. It was every single day, pretty much, or week, sorry, you were seeing a player going in, player going out, one coming in on loan, one going out, players released. Obviously, at that point, being involved with the club, do you think there was kind of feelings in and around the club that this just isn't going right?
I think so. I think when Keith Curl initially came in, you have to say, fair enough, he steadied the ship. You know, he got us a win, for God's sake, you know. But as his tenure went on and on and on, like you said, the turnover of players, I think I saw something like we had 33 players in the club last season. And, you know, it's just chaos. It's absolute madness. But as his tenure went on, it just seemed like, I don't know if he lost the players or what, but there was no sort of, it didn't seem like he had a plan at times. You know, I think it culminated in his final game against Newport, which we should have drawn because it was an absolutely awful game, but we lost it in the last minute. And I think the most bizarre decision, and I have nothing against him, by the way, but was playing David Ferguson at right back. You know, and like Callum alluded to, simply the players weren't good enough. You know, you have to look at it, and you have to look at the players we brought in the summer. They weren't good enough. And the players we let go, we were always going to let some players go last summer. But you've got to replace them with good enough players, or you're going to struggle. And it was blatantly obvious from the first game against Walsall, when we got absolutely hammered, that it wasn't going to be an easy ride for us. Then Keith Curl came in, and it seemed like, do you know what? He's the experienced head you need, because, you know, he had that. He's done it in the league. He knows what he's doing, and he was like right, he's got the players settled, they're doing something. But then as it went on and on and on, I don't know, like I said, it just seemed like he lost them.
Yeah, it was strange, wasn't it? I think Callum, again, another manager goes. Assi comes in this time, and it's late for everybody, unbeaten in the 8 games. But as always, with Hartlepool going up there, it's the great escape, and it just felt this time it could possibly just that little bit too late. Luck ran out, and obviously relegation to the National League. I mean, what was your feelings looking back overall at the season?
Well, yeah, obviously we had the good run of 8 games, and don't get us wrong, I think most Bulls fans thought that was it for staying up, especially the fact that we crept out of the relegation zone for a week, if not a little bit. I'm not too sure on the date, but probably about a week. It was in our hands, and especially the game against Crawley being the big one against the other relegation candidates. And then I think from throwing that away, that was about it. We had no chance. It was just been catch up for the rest of it, which obviously ended up just getting relegated. But yeah, looking back on the season, I think start to finish was probably use the word shambles in terms of how many players came in, how many players came out. You look at the players that have left, and none of them have gone to, well, not many of them have gone to, a league, a club of our standard. And we've brought players in on loan. We've ones that Curl brought in on a short-term contract. They've ended up going to clubs 2-3 leagues down from us because they simply weren't good enough. And, give some of the players their due. They did turn themselves around, and Murray being a big shout in defence at the end of the season somehow gets himself dropped, wasn't good enough at the start, and then pulls himself around at the end of the season and had a good end of the season. But most of them, looking back on it, were poor season overall. But hopefully this season going forward, a lot better.
Fingers crossed, isn't it? And like you say, Alex, I mean, you always look at the sides that win the leagues, and it's always the same kind of starting 11, pretty much week in, week out, the same subs coming on, stability. And you look over, like you say, the last season, the 3 managers, the 20 plus transfers in and out, the loans, the players, and obviously changing every single week. Who, if you can put a finger on it, was to blame, or do you think it was just a part of everybody from the club down to the players, the managers that came in?
I think it's difficult to lay the blame at one person. I know a lot of Pools fans will lay the blame at Raj Singh, and I think he does have a case to answer here because, there was talk in the summer of a playoff budget and all of this other stuff, which there might well have been. But when you read comments about after they sacked Paul Hartley and he said, I'd never heard of Paul Hartley, it's really concerning. And it's like you look at things where he said, I've never heard of this guy. I was badly advised by this person. My advisor said this, my advisor said that. You can't build solid foundations if you've got if you've got bad ground to lay it in.
Yeah.
To coin an analogy. And I just think, start to finish, it didn't work. Paul Hartley didn't want to be here. That was one thing. But then the players weren't good enough. When Curl, like Callum said, he turned them around. Ewan Murray went from the worst player I've ever seen in a Hartlepool shirt to a fairly competent defender. But in our team, fairly competent was like a world beater at that point. And I think, you just, there are a lot of factors that went. It wasn't just one inciting thing. The Crawley game, yes, if we'd won the Crawley game, we probably would have stayed up, in my opinion. But the players, I don't know if that 8-game unbeaten run where they should have won a couple of more games, but various circumstances conspired against us. I don't know if that was just they burnt themselves out in trying to claw back all those points and play catch up as we were for a lot of the season. But yeah, I don't really think you could. I say a lot of fans will say Raj Singh is the be all and end all. But you have to say, fair play in January. All right, it all came in on deadline day, which I know was a lot of frustrations to people, but he did back Keith Curl and the recruitment team, and we got 11 players in January, of which a few of them came in early, the likes of Matty Dolan, Edmund Pruty, Peter Hartley. These players came in early, and we would have liked a few more earlier because we had big games in January that we didn't capitalise on. But throughout the season, you could say we didn't capitalise on that game, we didn't capitalise on that. We didn't really. I don't think we got back-to-back wins, or if we did, it was like once. And as you rightly said at the beginning, stability is what you need. These teams who do well, don't chop and change much. But if you have 3 managers in a season, the season hasn't gone well. So it says it all, really.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, that's obviously the next point of moving forward now, and I think that's what you've really got to do. And start with yourself, Colin. Obviously, relegation now, 6 released, and I think more left now after you decided not to sign the extensions. Keith left and the coach leaves, which relieves around about a dozen first-team players now, 40 players coming in. Did you see, obviously, a fresh start needed or a massive overhaul again, obviously, with so much change last year?
It seems to be a recurring thing with Pools.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
In the 4 or 5 years that Lige has had us, and I'll be honest, even before that, it's a case of it's just a constant turnaround with players. And we say every single season is a fresh start, possibly with the players that we brought in last year. And hopefully so, and especially with Askey, hopefully the 2 we've brought in already look decent, and hopefully we can get, well, I say a few, we need 10, if not more, to fill out the squad. Yeah, at least. Hopefully we can bring in some decent players, experienced players, and just get some form of stability this year in terms of not having to bring in, 33 players last year, and all the ones that are contracted and whatever, and not constantly have that turnaround, because, like you said, clubs that are pushing for promotion don't have that constant change every single week, different squads, different subs, and everything like that. We need set players to push on this season, especially with the National League, because it's a really hard league to get out of. We know that far too well. That's for sure.
Yeah, and do you think it's hard enough as well now, obviously, with the football pyramid of how it's set up in the North East? You've got, obviously, look at South Shields now pushing on to get as high as they can, who's probably, if not offering around the same wage as what Hartlepool probably are. Obviously, you've got other teams in that league who want to push on the likes of Spennymoor, and you see players actually now going to them clubs over Hartlepool. It's a bit of a worry now, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if it probably is a wage thing. You look at it, especially Shields. Me and my mates in question, we used to follow them when we played at Peter League, because it's literally down the road from where we live, and we went from crowds of 30 to 40 on a Tuesday night in the Northern League, so now they're getting crowds of 2,500 back at home with the money that they're spending. But you see that happen all over the place. Spennymoor have got very generous owners, and obviously they've come quite a way as well compared to where they used to be. But it is, I think, all a case of decent wages, decently run club. Would you want to come to a club where it might be paying the same wage as Shields, but are you going to be let go in 6 months when things aren't going well, or you're down the pecking order and stuff like that? So it's all of the questions: where do you want to go as a player for the best that you're going to get out there?
I think it comes down to ambition, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Pools, but you look at a club like South Shields, who are well backed. Their owners obviously wants them to succeed. But you look at it and you think, you know what, this club wants to be in the Football League, and this club wants to be there as quick as it can. And if you go there and someone sells you that thing, it's like, without being pessimistic, Pools just being relegated, in a bit of disarray, clubs up for sale, all of these things going on behind the scenes. What's a more attractive prospect? You can get the same, possibly even better money at South Shields. Go there, have an ambitious club with an owner who wants to succeed, create history for a club like South Shields, or come to, I don't want to say this, but what it basically is a bit of a yo-yo club at the minute. We've gone up and down. All right, well, hopefully we go up and we stay up next time. But it's that thing, isn't it? It's like in the Premier League, you look at a club like West Brom, who was always up and down, up and down. Would you rather go there, or would you rather go to a club like Brentford, who are on the up? And I think it boils down to that. And as you say, Spenny are the same. Spenny are very ambitious. They've got plenty of people backing them. So what would you rather do? I know there was a Spenny player going to come and join us the season we got promoted, but didn't, because he would have to leave his job, and he got more money for his job and playing for Spenny, even though it was COVID at the time. He was furloughed. So it's one of those. A lot of, with non-league particularly, you have things like that where part-time players are actually earning more than a full-time footballer. So you have to look at all sorts of things. It's a big life change for players in this position as well.
It's huge, isn't it? I mean, Alex, as well, staying with yourself, and obviously the season not long finished, and you're just thinking, right, come on, let's all get together, push forward. And the interview with Raj obviously puts the club up for sale, and at that point, you really want to come and say, right, we're going to back the team, get them promoted, and try and get back to the Football League. And then it's the first interview, right, the club's up for sale, and you can see there's a panic of if they don't get it sold in so many times, will he just walk away or will he stick behind the club? I mean, what was your feelings when you heard the interview?
Well, for one thing, I don't think the interview should have been publicised. I think it was ill-advised on the part of the chairman, particularly about the parts where he was saying, I take full responsibility, but then threw everyone under the bus. And I mean, everyone.
Yeah.
You know, it was Dave Challoner's fault. It was Graham Lee's fault because it was a panic. But literally, you name anyone associated with Hartlepool, it was their fault. But he takes the blame. And I just think, I watched it the whole 22 minutes. And I remember thinking, I'll watch a couple of minutes of it. And I just kept watching because I couldn't take my eyes away.
Yeah.
It was incredible. You know, you watch it, you think, what's going on? And to go to your point about, what, you know, is there a fear that he could walk away? I genuinely think there is. I hope he doesn't. And I hope we get a buyer who is ambitious and isn't just going to, you know, sell all the club's assets and everything like that. But genuinely, and I'm not having a go at the fans here, but if the fans keep getting on his back, I think he'll just throw his toys out the plan and just go, yeah, see you later. Fans' frustrations are completely valid. I'm not saying they're not. But just from the interview he gave, it sounded very much like if you keep giving me stick, I'm off. It was basically threatening the fans, and again, this is partly why I don't think it should have been broadcast. I think the statement he put out was fine. You know, the statement it was clearly there, but the interview, the emotions came into it. I don't know if he got off of his track or whatever, but it just gave a big impression that, you know, it was my fault, but it wasn't my fault. And also, if you don't toe the line, I'm off and you're screwed, which there is a real fear of. And, you know, I know there's a lot of Darlington fans who are very much saying, well, we told you so about him. And you've always got to thank him, because when he came in and bought the club, there was no one there, literally no one else. It was him or the club goes bust. But, you know, has his time come, or is he going to back the club properly? I think it's fair to say that the parts of the interview I liked were the parts where he said, look, I'm going to back the club. I am going, until I am no longer in charge of this club, I will back the club. But you would expect that as a professional, you know. So there's a bit of give and take there. So you've got to look at it and think, is he going to be good to his word, or will things not go so well when the National League starts, or it's been a bit quiet at the minute? Are people going to keep getting on the club's back? Are rumblings going to appear online of something that doesn't materialise and people go off? We're completely fictional, and people, you know, there might be some rumour of knight in shining armour coming to buy the club that's completely false.
Yeah,
and Raj Singh doesn't sell the club, and then the fans get on his back again when actually nothing's happened. And, you know, that's one thing. I think as fans we have to be patient, which is difficult, of course. You know, you're a Newcastle fan. You had however many years of Mike Ashley, and that wasn't an easy thing. It wasn't an easy thing, but you know, you've still got to hope that he will be good to his word and will back the club.
I think what it is though for a lot of Pils fans is just a bit of clarity. And I know you mentioned it in one of his videos. I don't know if it was the end of season one or if it was before that, where he said we can't just keep chucking out club statements left, right, and centre. It's not necessarily that we want a club statement every single week of what's going on, but it's just a case of, I think in the 4 or 5 years he's owned us, I don't think we've had an official like end of season report. Like, you get the financial reports of how the club's done, have we made money, have we lost money, where we lost money, why, and all of that. Like, most clubs do even little bits on the website to say this is where we are end of year, like on the tax years and stuff like that. I think for Pils fans, they've had to do their own digging of where the club's at financially, in terms of, this is what Raj is saying, of how much he spent, 2.7 million or something that he said he's putting, or 2.2. But then you look on companies' houses, and last year there was £1 million all of a sudden went out of the accounts. Of where's that going, and is that right? Has he took that back? Has he not took that back? And because there's no official confirmation of what's actually going on financially, is he telling the truth? He might well be, don't get us wrong, but there's a lot of those fans, and they're not, don't get us wrong, on social media. I think a lot of clubs and fans can do the same, especially if they're left in the dark, but it's all a case of just a little bit more clarity of what is actually going on in the background in terms of, are you staying or you're not staying? Are you definitely backing us? But we'll see how it plays over the next few weeks. Do we get signings in that we expect? And are we going to go for the cheap options people like to throw about? Or are we actually going to back Askey and get the right players into this season? So,
and that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, and I mean, staying with yourself, Carl, I mean, one of the best business for myself was keeping hold of Jaraski. Obviously, I think doing really well at that level. Are you confident with him staying now that if he does get the right players and he wants, not obviously like you say, the cheap option, can you go straight back up?
I hope so. I mean, I think we've got to thank ourselves looking at Askey staying, because look at what he did with York, and the York fans are absolutely gutted when he got sacked, and obviously came out of nowhere, but I think they've got similar issues with their owners as well. So, yeah, it's another story for York. But hopefully, right back and right players, he gets the players that he wants, and not that someone in the club's decided that we want, or whoever's left at the end of the transfer window that hasn't got a club.
Exactly, yeah.
See what comes in. And I mean, the two that we've got already, Joel Dixon and down the head for a defender from Scarborough, both of those so far, seem decent signings, decent replacement to keeper for Killer, and Stolarczyk with them going, obviously Killer bleeding, which is a shame because he had his moments, was a decent keeper, but had his blunders.
Thank you. I heard so much rubbish about Killer, honestly. Like, would you, if the defence he had in front of him last season, you would have no confidence. So are you surprised he had a dip in form?
Exactly.
Controversial, I know, but
no, I agree. You could say the same. You could put any keeper in goal. You could, I don't know, pick the hair out of Premier League and put him in goal for us, but put the defence that we had in front of him, we'd concede 4 or 5 a game anyway. But it is what it is, and hopefully Dixon, especially in this league, dropping down from Bolton, can be a decent signing for us. And then obviously stepping up from Scarborough as well. We took Dan Dodson, who's on loan from Borough, but he was at Darlow, brought him up to Travel League, and he flew through the end of the season. So hopefully this season get the right players in it and do decent.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And Alex, man, you look at the league as well, and obviously you see teams drop out of League Two, and it's one of those yo-yo things where literally you have a couple of bad starts, and then all of a sudden you could be down there, and you see some massive clubs now getting relegated. But obviously, with Askey now, what's your thoughts going into the season? You think he can be the man to get his back up?
Well, I agree that I think Askey is the best signing we could have made. The fact that he's staying on, I think that's brilliant news, because he knows the league. Not only his time with York, he obviously won the league with Macclesfield, our first season in the league. He's got that. It's funny, I was actually working at Radio York the day that he was announced at Pools, and the day he was sacked from York. So it was like a nice circle thing. And believe me, that was the most reaction we had on anything at Radio York the whole few months I was there. But I think he knows what he wants. If he's backed, I think it's that we've all got that pre-season renewed optimism. Newcastle are going to win the league because it's the beginning of the season. It's how it works, isn't it? Every club's going to win the league because it's what happens. But I think, as you rightly point out, you look at clubs like Scunthorpe, Torquay, even Oldham didn't have a brilliant season last season. You look at them and you've got the alarm bells have got to ring. The National League is not an easy league, as we know. But I think the fact that Wrexham and Notts County have gone up makes it a lot friendlier. There's only really Chesterfield who are going to be chucking money at stuff to try and get up. Despite the fact they nearly went up in the playoffs anyway. But there's only really going to be Chesterfield doing that. It's a better league, but also I think the fact that we've been there before, it's not as much as it's not that unknown quantity. We know what it's about. We know that they're all big ugly buggers who are going to want to knock lumps out of everybody, and it's not going to be pretty, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to have teams who just want to kick them and not play football. But we don't have that. As I say, it's not unknown to us, unfortunately. So we have to. We do have that. We have the right man in charge. Where last time we were relegated, and I'm not. This isn't a criticism of Craig Harrison, but there was a lot of uncertainty in the summer. Obviously, Dave Jones left. Thank goodness. Then Craig Harrison came in, and then there was all the stuff going on in the background that was preventing Craig Harrison from doing a proper job. And I think if he was backed properly, we would have done a lot better. I'm not saying we would have won the league, but we would have done a lot better. When you hear about all of the things that were going on in the background, there's no surprise that we struggled. But also, I think that opening game against Dover was a wake-up call. And I think because we are better prepared for that, whatever our fixtures are, we will be in a much better place to do better this season. Obviously, I've got that optimism of I'm a fan, we're going to win the league. But, I'm also realistic to know that we're probably still going to lose some players over the summer, though we have 15 players contracted. The likes of Josh and Mira probably going to leave. You mentioned Dan Dodds. Even Dan Dodds, there could be interest in him. So yes, we're in a better position, but there's still so many variables that can go on before the season starts. I don't mean to sound pessimistic. I'm just trying to be realistic here. Look at last season, we had however many players contracted and however many of them left before the start of the season. Neil Byrne, for example, he was on our books, left before the start of the season, wasn't replaced. So I think get the recruitment right, back the manager and trust him, because I think he showed in the 13 games or something at the end of the season that actually he can get this team playing and he can get them going. Even I thought, right, I went to Stockport in the last game of the season and I was like, am I insane? We're relegated. Stockport are going for automatic promotion. Am I insane here? And we upset them by drawing, and we were relegated and we were just no one. So I think John Askey has shown that he can get the team playing. And I think, Callum, you might agree, the games he was in charge, we played some good football. And I think, you've got to look at it and think, all right, he knows what he's doing. Let's trust him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think
I've gone off a tangent.
No, I agree. I think we got to a point last season where I don't know if it was Carl specifically or anyone else in the background that's going on, but I think the term hoofball comes up a lot. It was just a case of kick and hope we can get something at the other end of the pitch. But it seemed when Askey came in, we actually started playing with a bit of plan.
Football.
Yeah, exactly. We kept it down, we had a plan, we knew what we wanted to do. Even when things weren't going our way, we knew how to change it up. Even though we didn't have, I would say, the quality on the bench, we still managed to bring players on and change the game at times. So I think this season going forward, stick to that plan and doesn't go that hoofball. It might be all right. But, we'll see.
I think sometimes though you've got to do that, haven't you? You've got to play the league.
Exactly.
I think the one thing you'd say, we played some lovely football under Dave Challoner, but we also weren't afraid to do the ugly side of the game. If it was necessary, if we played a team, no disrespect, like Weymouth, when we played them, the game was different. But when we played a Chesterfield who wanted to play football, I was stood behind the goal when we played them at home, and the Chesterfield keeper went up one of the centre-backs about 20 minutes in and went, we are getting battered here. Absolutely battered, because they just couldn't cope with the press. And that was the thing. He had a plan A, but he also had a plan B and a C and a D. And it's a cliche, isn't it? But John Askey has that. I think at times you had to question, particularly towards the end of his tenure, did Keith Curle have that? I don't think Paul Hartley had a plan, so we can discount that one entirely.
And before we get up next season as well, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's watching and still watching now as well. I really appreciate your support. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button as well. We're so close to 900 subscribers now, which is amazing as well. But start with yourself, Colin, for next season, like we've been touching on earlier, Kieran Burton, Joel Dixon coming in. I know it's very early at this stage, but what positions are you hoping to come in over the next kind of few weeks that you've seen from last season that it needs to be filled?
Can I answer every?
Yeah, you can.
No, there's a lot. I think defence is going to be the main one that we need, and we seem to struggle, especially if we had players out injured. It got to the point where we had the bare bones playing defence, and like Alex said earlier, was, Dave Ferguson playing at right back at one point, and you think playing players who are well out of position, and that's why we're, some of the games you probably agree that we got beat because players were out of position, they weren't playing the normal way, and that was it. We were losing because of it. So hopefully we get the right ones in that we need. Don't overbuild certain areas, and I think Askey will know what he wants, especially after the 13 games we had and the players we've got left. We hope know exactly where he wants, and hopefully we can fill them with quality signings.
No, hopefully. And Alex, I mean, looking at like you said, only 2 players came in so far. I think that's quite interesting where it's not just a massive number of players coming in, he is looking at the right players. And obviously as well with how good our non-league system is now, you see obviously Aidan Rutledge going to Gateshead a couple of weeks ago, scoring 61 goals last season. It's almost time now to have a little look down there as well to see what's about. And I just think with home North East players, it just means a little bit more when players coming from all the way down south to come to play for like Gateshead, Hartlepool, and teams like that. They just haven't got that much passion as the local lads do. I mean, what would you like to see come over the next few weeks?
I think just on that point you were making there, I think the season we got promoted, arguably the best signing we made, other than Luke Armstrong, of course, but Luke Armstrong came home, was Jamie Sterry, who came from South Shields.
Yeah, brilliant.
And, I said in the National League, this lad's a League One player. He was too good for the National League. We did really well to hang on to him when we got promoted. And I know a lot of people have questioned his fitness, but you know what? When the lad played, he was fantastic. He was. I was sat at Crystal Palace. We were in the bar, and the night before, and there was some poolies in the bar. Little kid comes up with us, and then there's me and a couple of the lads in the club, and we're having a drink and just enjoying ourselves. And the kid said he starts yammering on as kids do, and he goes, "Who's our best player?" And I went, "Jamie Sterry," without question, Jamie Sterry. And the kid was like, "Eh?" Because he didn't score goals, he wasn't flashy.
Yeah,
he said, by far and away, he's our best player. I said, obviously, you want me to say someone like Gav Houlihan, but Jamie Sterry was the answer. And we got him from South Shields. So you're absolutely right. I think it matters to the lads from the North East. Jamie Sterry, David Ferguson, the same. We got him from York, came home. Luke Armstrong, he came home and he talked about the value of being at home. I think it does matter, and I think it does make a difference. And that's no disrespect to someone like Josh Amira, who's come from down south, did very well for us last season. But you have to look at it and say, these lads really care. And I remember after the Barrow game, where obviously relegation was confirmed, there was 2 players on that pitch who I felt absolutely heartbroken for, and that was Sterry and Ferguson. 2 North East lads who really cared about the club. And that's not to say that the other lads don't.
Yeah.
But they were absolutely broken men on that pitch. And I think the quality is there in the lower leagues. Obviously, you'd hope we would sign someone we would do something like Wrexham and sign the top scorer in League One. You would hope that's never going to happen because it's pools. Let's be honest. Let's be realistic about it. But like you said, Joel Dixon won the league with Barrow. Perfectly solid goalkeeper at this level. Didn't quite work out for him at Bolton, but very solid keeper at this level. Kieran Burton from Scarborough, up and coming lad. Why not? It worked for Dan Dodds. It worked for Jamie Sterry. Jamie Sterry, I think, he was down at South Shields for other reasons, and that's no disrespect to South Shields. But the quality is there. Why don't we utilise it? Why don't we bring in players who could improve our team by just who are local and want to succeed and are hungry and have that desire? It's like I said earlier about ambition. Bring in a player with ambition. Bring in a player who, when the lads aren't performing, is going to say, "Oh, wait, lads, I want to score here. I want to win us this game. You might not be having the best game, but I want to win us this game." Bring in someone like that, because it's much about the mentality as it's about their ability, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Hopefully we can, especially look back over the past few years, and I think one player that quite a few people keep mentioning, I don't even know if he's playing for anyone at the moment, but Scotty Bennett, like local lad, came from Dunstan. I don't know if he came from Dunstan straight away. I think he did.
He was Dunstan.
But you look at him, and I think what we touched on earlier on in this as well is is it a question of are they working full time and then playing part time football? Are they going to lose wages and whatnot? And it's a very fine balance, especially with the league we're in now, and then you've got your incoming club Shields and Sven and everyone else who's scoring money about as well. But hopefully, it's always a case you get them playing with more passion. I think if you look at even the likes of Callum Coote, he's from Pete League, I went to the same school with him, and so his brother was in my year and whatnot. But he came home after Bradford, and you could argue some games he probably didn't play his best, but I think we could say that about all of our players this season. But he had that.
Name a player who did.
But you could say that even he being Northern as well, you could tell he had that passion of wanting to keep the club up. So yeah, I think I agree with definitely North East. So,
Definitely.
Doesn't have to be.
Well, yeah. anyone who's passionate for the club, as simple as that. Like, Holohan he's not from the North East, and I think he had about as much passion as every single fan in the stand, that's for sure.
Well, exactly. And another player you could add that list is our player of the century, Richie Humphries. He's from Sheffield, but you know what? He loved the club.
Yeah.
And you know what? There are a lot of things to love about the club, and I'm not just saying that as a fan. How many players, particularly after we were promoted, said, "This is brilliant playing in front of these fans." Every single one of those players said, "I came here because of those fans." And it wasn't, and I'm not just talking about the northwest corner. I'm talking about the entire ground here, because the entire ground was singing at points. And how many clubs have that, particularly at our level? You might have passionate fan bases, and I'm not begrudging anyone, but that is something else. You don't have the fans backing it. You don't have fans in the National League traveling from Eastleigh up to Pools. You get like 12.
Yeah.
That's the away attendance. And again, no disrespect to Eastleigh, but that's not an away attendance. That's a day trip on the bus, isn't it?
Yeah. But you look at it like when we had Graham Lee, and I feel sorry for Graham Lee, especially with the comments that Raj has made and that he didn't want him and stuff like that. And I feel like Graham Lee did it, if not more than what Challingham was doing in the league. He got us, Palace away in the FA Cup. We got the semi-finals of the Patrick John's Trophy and one kick away from Wembley. And you see our fans in that game as well, all 7,000 literally singing, dancing all game, was probably the highlight of the season, if not as well as Palace away. And yeah, we may have fell off a bit towards the end of the season, but we didn't really have a chance to get in playoffs and then go from not much to play for. But I think when we're doing well, the fans fully back the team and the club and turn up week in, week out.
No, it doesn't. And like you say, talking about getting back to the Vic and Callum, I mean, between now and from May till August, it's just that point about it. I know you're watching Sky Sports every day, the fans forums, but it's just not the same as getting back to the Vic. I mean, how much forward are you looking back to getting back to the Vic?
Honestly, I cannot wait. I think I'm getting bored, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's not an awful lot you can do. You check the socials, see if anyone's coming in, is someone going, what's going on, and but can't wait to be back, to be honest. But honestly, looking forward. Even pre-seasons against Sunderland and Durham, Harrogate of all teams, but can't wait to be back. That's for sure.
Yeah, and yourself, Alex, I know obviously working in the club as well. I know we've been talking about the video that came on about walking on there, but I really missed the pitch update this year. I know we haven't seen that one. You always have the pitch update of week by week. I always look forward to that one on Facebook, but I'm usually excited to get back as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's mad because I'm up most Saturdays at the minute. I'm up at 3:30 in the morning for work, and then I go straight to the Vic afterwards, and then I collapse in a heap, and then I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning for the next day. But I'm like scrabbling around trying to find something to do on a Saturday afternoon at the minute. I'm like, well, what do you do? Even when we're away, I don't go to every away game. Don't get me wrong. I try to go to at least an away game a season, but it's like, the radio's on. I'm listening to that, or sometimes I'm working, and it's like, right, I'm seeing what's happening. I'm invested in this. Where I think it's the same for every football fan. You want to be back at the Vic. You want to be seeing your team. You want to see them do well. You want to see your friends at the ground. Whether it's club staff, whether it's you go with your mates to the game, the guy you stood next to for 30 years or whatever. it's that community, isn't it? And whether it's like you say, like the tea lady or whatever, there's someone at the ground who you can have a bit of crack with, and you can enjoy the game with. And yeah, it does. I want to be back there being a nuisance on the pitch with my camera again because I love getting in the way. You can ask many of the players, I get in the way, but I'm always very respectful. I'm always very polite. But it's a bit of fun in it. And I said it before. I have a dream job, mate. I have a dream job. Callum's probably really jealous of the fact that I had to sit here and go on the pitch and. I got a hug off Jamie Sterry last season, just saying, so it's like the access I have is ridiculous and in a good way. And you just think, I want to be back doing that. Even the cold, freezing cold, raining days in the middle of December where, really you just want to be warm. You're like, nah, I'm here, the lads are there, and that's what it is. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
I think those going to be better, especially. I think was our ground voted one of the coldest in the UK at some point, so I'm sure it was that record like that for the coldest away day. It's us. But
I can imagine.
Yeah, don't get us wrong though. A nice Tuesday night in December when it's like -5, snowing. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
No, not at all.
And we're going to finish off with a score league prediction as well. And obviously, watch us back there later on the season. See who's the closest. Starting with yourself, Colin. Where are you going for league finish next season?
I'll be hopeful, and I'll say we're going to sneak a playoff place. So I'll say probably I'm going to go with the 6th place finish.
And yourself, Alex?
I would agree. I'm eternally the optimist, and I think we will get in the playoffs. I couldn't put an exact position on it unless you were going to really press me on it. But I think we'll get in the playoffs, particularly if we keep Josh Amira. I think that's a big deal. But I would suspect he'll be going somewhere else. But yeah, I would go playoffs.
Excellent. But all lads, thank you very much for coming on. We wish you the very best of luck next season. Hope you're back in the Football League as well. And don't all boo at once. Sunday, 7:30, the North East Non-League Show, episode 32, Darlow special. Matty coming on for that one. Same situation kind of going over last season. A look at next season well, but it's just nice to talk about the football club, and it's almost back to the season starting. And like you say, we wish you the very best of luck. And again, everyone that's been watching at home, thank you so much for your support as always, and please hit that subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night as well.